My friends, we have some very important business to discuss today. No matter how long you've been vegan, vegetarian, or whether you're just trying to minimize your impact, accidents happen. Accidents happen and we accidentally buy things that we didn't realize aren't vegan. In this video, I'm going to be talking about several ingredients that companies sneak into our foods that make them not vegan. This list is both helpful for seasoned vegans and new vegans. Actually, I learned quite a few things when making this. Let's just get right into it. Perhaps the newest one I learned about is L-Cysteine. This one's a weird one. It's derived from either human hair, cow horns, or feathers, which is so strange to me. It's an amino acid additive that's used to prolong shelf life in different kinds of breads and things like that. Fun fact, it's in Dunkin' Donuts donuts, and it's what makes them not vegan. I tried looking up some alternatives and there were a lot of conflicting reports. Some websites said that Burger King and McDonald's and other fast food buns weren't vegan and had L-Cysteine in them, and then other websites said that they didn't have that kind of stuff in them. Use your best judgment whenever you're doing stuff like that, but I know I'm still going to be eating Impossible Burgers from Burger King when I have to. If you're wanting some sweet treats or some breads and things like that, Sprouts and Publix Bakery have things that we can eat, and they are clearly labeled vegan. And I live in Alabama, so there's a good chance you have a lot more vegan options for sweet treats than I do. Actually, I would recommend looking into local businesses because there's a good chance that there are a few local bakeries around you that do dairy-free and vegan items. L-Cysteine is listed as L-Cysteine, so if you know what it is, then you know to avoid it. If you have no idea what it is, then it's gonna be hard to avoid. Like literally last night, I was eating spaghetti with my parents and my mom had gotten this garlic bread for all of us to eat. My parents aren't vegan. She was reading over the ingredient list and there wasn't anything that said milk or anything that was blatantly obvious that it wasn't vegan. She was like, here, you look over the ingredient list. And I did, and plain and simple, there L-Cysteine was. If I wouldn't have looked that up fairly recently, and if I wouldn't have learned that working on this video, then I would have eaten it without realizing that it wasn't vegan. Another one that I just learned about is actually perhaps the grossest one, is called Castoreum. Castoreum is a popular FDA-approved food additive in things like ice creams especially. It's allowed to be called natural flavors, so you never really know if you're getting it or not. Actually, a point I want to make really fast is that natural flavors are often butter or other things that we'll talk about on this list, so always be wary of something that's natural flavors whenever you're buying something and you don't know exactly if it's vegan or not, or if it's not clearly labeled vegan. Anyways, back to Castoreum. It comes from the castor sacs of beavers. What's a castor sac, you might wonder? Anal glands. Ew. I'm going to read you the description that I found online somewhere that is so disgusting. Castoreum is a yellowish secretion with a musky vanilla scent and a brownish consistency, similar to molasses. Ew. Again, it's in mostly ice creams. I couldn't find anything with Castoreum clearly listed on it, so it's definitely listed as natural flavors in a lot of things. Most of the things I looked up pretty much said that it was just in ice creams, and especially like strawberry flavored ice cream. So chances are, if we're already buying non-dairy or clearly labeled vegan items, we're not going to run into it a whole lot, but it does exist. Another one that a lot of us might know about but might not realize how many names it has, I definitely didn't, is Carmine. When I was a kid, the hot goss, which also ages me as a phrase, but when I was a kid, the hot gossip was that there was bat poop in mascara, and I always thought that was like so disgusting. And then as I got older and as I talked to people about it, I realized that they were putting beetles in our food. So Carmine is a beetle. Carmine has several different names, and I actually found them in the wild in my search earlier. It's also known as cochineal, which is the type of beetle that it is. Natural red number 4, cochineal extract, crimson lake, which is very cryptic, natural red flower, E120, or Carmine lake. Cochineals are scaled insects usually found on prickly pear cactuses, and it takes about 70,000 insects to make about 500 grams of dye. I honestly don't know how much candy or whatever that makes, or food dye or anything. I don't know how much that makes. I kind of couldn't find it when I was looking it up, but that's a lot of insects too, not a lot of dye. So some foods that are dyed are Skittles, which I thought were vegan, honestly. I get them for Christmas every year because I genuinely didn't realize they weren't vegan, because I didn't realize that red 40 was Carmine. A lot of yogurts, so like strawberry yogurts and stuff like that. Again, if you're buying from vegan companies, you're probably not going to run into this a whole lot. And fruit juices. They put beetles in our juice. Beetle juice, ain't that something? It's a very popular ingredient in makeup because it is very pigmented as a red, so often in like lipsticks and eyeshadows and things like that you'll find it. Also, I discovered it is in a lot of medications and supplements. I don't know this for sure, but I imagine like Dayquil or something, how it has like the orange coating on the outside. I would imagine it's probably in something like that. So some alternatives to avoid Carmine and get some candy. There are Airheads are vegan friendly, Dum Dums are vegan friendly, and Jolly Ranchers are vegan friendly. And that obviously doesn't include any chocolate because chocolate's a whole different story. I'll include a link below of a full list of vegan candy that you can find that is stuff like this. And as far as like makeup and beauty products go, I personally buy from clearly labeled vegan brands. So like ColourPop is my favorite for makeup. Their sister company is Fourth Ray Beauty, and I tend to buy their skincare products as well as Pacifica or Cure. Those are all 100% vegan friendly, so those are typically what I go for, but I'll also include a list of makeup and skincare brands that are vegan. Speaking of bugs, you might hear some since I decided to come outside. I live in Alabama and we have crazy cicadas here. Probably the most well-known sneaky non-vegan ingredient is gelatin. Gelatin is a gelatinous substance that comes from animal collagen. So most often that comes from boiling animal skins, ligaments, bones, and or tendons in water. So it's often in gummy things like gummy candies and fruit snacks and jellos and things like that. Marshmallows and gum and many medication capsules. So some alternates that are usually pretty vegan friendly are agar-agar, pectin, carrageenan, and xanthan gum. I don't know what most of those are made for, but I do know that pectin is made from fruit. So as far as vegan candy goes, I did include a list of vegan candies that you can find that don't contain gelatin. Snack Club has some vegan candies that are usually really, really good. I find them at TJ Maxx a lot of times, but I'm sure you can find them other places. Some popular ones are Sour Patch Kids, and there are some lesser known brands of vegan candies, and especially vegan gummy candies on Amazon if you just search for vegan gummy candies. This one's also very, very weird and pretty gross. Isinglass. A lot of people don't know about this one. Isinglass, I hope I'm saying it right. Isinglass is commonly used in beer or wine, or just like alcohol drinks, but mostly beer and wine. It's a form of collagen from fish bladders. Ew. Mostly the isinglass is used in the filtration process, but I have heard that sometimes it's used other ways. I don't quite know how to explain it, but just know that perhaps most wines aren't vegan. There are some companies that I generally prefer that are vegan. Blake's Hard Ciders, if you're a cider girly like me. Terrazas, I hope I'm saying that right, Malbec, they have a clearly labeled vegan bottle. And Hornitos Tequila. Most of your United States domestic beers, so like Michelob Ultra and Bud Light and things like that, those are vegan friendly. But some popular wines that are not vegan are most of the barefoot wines as well as cupcake wines. And cupcakes are pretty popular as well. There is a website called Barnivore that is really helpful for something like this. They have most things on there unless it's like a really small brewery or something. If not, you can probably just submit it to them and they'll check up on it. And I really like Barnivore because they show not only if it's like vegan friendly or not, they typically like will email the company and then they put on their website what the email says. So I think that's really cool. It also just provides an extra layer of security in a way. And I have included another list of vegan wines that you can find. This one is mostly for educational purposes because I know that there are a lot of people that might not be vegan that watch this, or people that are thinking about going vegan. So I'm going to include honey. To put it simply, going vegan means that you don't consume or purchase or condone or support the use of any animal products. When you buy products containing honey, you are supporting the honey industry. If you've ever looked into it, the honey industry is awful, by the way. The act of harvesting honey kills a lot of bees. If there is a disease outbreak, farmers typically burn the hives. Not to mention the very intense manufacturing process that comes from making the honey. Mostly commercially bought honey, not necessarily like locally bought honey or locally bought farmers honey, commercially bought, I mean. So what you can find in your grocery stores typically. So store-bought honey and That cicada is really loud. Store-bought honey is essentially diluted, sweetened, and stripped of any potential health benefits that you would want to get from honey in the first place. So it's kind of pointless. If you're going to buy some honey, or if your loved ones do, at least try to support local farmers and beekeepers instead of these huge corporations with very unethical practices. I'm going to include a link below that is a beekeeper explaining the differences between store-bought honey and locally bought honey. Here is another one that is really super annoying. Casein and whey. Casein is a protein found in milk that basically makes it white, and whey is a liquid byproduct of casein and cheese. So generally, if you're supporting vegan brands, you're not really going to run into casein and whey a whole lot, and if something says dairy-free, you're usually okay, but not always. There's a very annoying caveat here that I have been stumped by before. There's a bit of verbiage nonsense that comes from something being labeled non-dairy. Doesn't exactly mean that it's cow-friendly, to put it bluntly. It can still contain casein, but it's technically lactose-free, so that is how they get away with it. Coffee mate coffee creamers are generally not vegan-friendly. Also, I found this. I already knew that it wasn't vegan, but I went ahead and just flipped it over, and you can see that it clearly contains whey. And another fun fact, on the bottom of a lot of ingredient lists, it has to say your main allergens. So if it does have whey and often casein, it will say contains milk. Another one that I learned a lot more about when I started making this video was shellac, or confectioner's glaze. I had heard of it in the context of nail polish, so like shellac nail polish, but I hadn't heard of it in the context of food. I didn't even realize that it was a thing. I'm gonna read what someone so eloquently wrote online. There are a lot of secretions that are used in food, and it's pretty gross actually when you think about it. It's something that a female bug secretes called lac to protect her eggs, essentially. This stuff is in a lot of candies that typically contain milk or gelatin. All right, but I did find this candy that was a triple threat. So I knew going into this video that shellac was in candy corn, but I didn't realize that in this particular candy corn, I would find honey, red 40, which again, Carmine, and confectioner's glaze. And actually, I was shocked that it said confectioner's glaze, parentheses, shellac. Oh, and gelatin. I didn't even realize that one until I was looking at the picture like just now. Again, I don't think that's something that we'll have to work too hard to avoid though. I'm gonna throw another one in there for educational purposes because I think a lot of people that are either newly vegan or love a vegan will be watching this, so I'm just gonna throw it in there. We talked about honey and how we typically don't use honey, but also beeswax is something that gets recommended to vegans a lot because it is, I guess it's because it's technically considered like a health food, and a lot of times being vegan and being healthy are kind of synonymous or like used in the same context. I have this coworker, for example, and her daughter makes like lip balms or something, and she was like, yeah, she makes them from natural beeswax. I appreciate the sentiment and I appreciate the recommendation, but I'm not going to use it. And also a lot of people confuse being vegan with being natural, and plant-based diets and healthy and natural and all these things. They just kind of get convoluted sometimes if you're not like in the sauce. So I'm just throwing it out there. Beeswax is secreted by bees. Again, with secretion. It's basically a construction tool to help build their hives, and it's harvested mostly from their hives. It's not vegan because A, it comes from bees, and B, bees inevitably die in the harvesting process. If you think about it, we take their homes and then profit off of them, like predatory real estate investors. And then we jack up the rent for everybody that wants to live there. Just kidding. I discovered while researching for this video that E901 is beeswax, and it's also often listed as E901 in ingredient lists. I'm getting sweaty and eat up by mosquitoes, so I'm gonna hurry. Last but not least, perhaps one of the most infuriating ones on this list, bone char. Basically, bone char is used for coloring. Coloring in many types of sugar, mostly. White table sugar, brown sugar, etc. Even in brown sugar, why would you use bone char in brown sugar? It makes me so mad. Here is how it works. Bone char is bought from different countries. It's shipped to other countries and processed, and then it's sold back to the United States to basically be put in our sugar. What's really infuriating about this, besides the fact that it's used in general, is the fact that it's nearly impossible to know if we're actually getting it or not. I think the usage of it is so small that they don't have to list it or something. It's really frustrating, but it's also referred to as natural carbon, So if you see anything that is labeled natural carbon, avoid it because it's bone char. In the description, I've included a list of sugars that are certified to not have bone char in them, so do with that what you will. So I recognize that a lot of the things on this list can be hard to avoid, especially if we don't exactly know what they're in or these natural flavorings and things like that. I get it. It gets really annoying to have to avoid everything that has natural flavors and Googling everything to see if it's vegan. But luckily now we've talked about some things that can be pretty easy to distinguish. If you're trying to buy for somebody that's vegan, or if you're newly vegan, I would recommend keeping a list of these things and all their weird names in your notes app, just in case. That way when you're going to the grocery store and you're not sure if something is vegan or not, you can just look. For the most part, these things can be pretty easily avoided though. If you eat a mostly plant-based diet, not hard to avoid at all because you don't really eat a whole lot of processed foods. But if you have the accessibility, I highly recommend just buying from vegan brands, certified vegan brands, and brands that just don't use animal products anyways, and you're gonna drastically minimize your chances of accidentally consuming something that's not vegan. I totally forgot to mention this before I stopped filming. If you're new here, I'm Lauren. This is Corpse Free Kitchen. I make mostly fun cooking videos, but I also want to branch out into more beginner-friendly vegan things. So if that's something that you're interested in, or if you're looking to go vegan, hang out a while. Check out some of my other videos. I'll include a playlist where you can find more tips for new vegans and tips for not new vegans as well, because I learn something every video that I make. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.